There is something strangely unsettling about the idea that greed is never satisfied. Not just the greed for money, but the deeper, more insidious form. The desire to possess, to claim, to control. It begins innocently enough, with objects, wealth, trinkets, symbols of status. But over time, that instinct quietly mutates, expanding until even people begin to look like something that can be owned. Horror often finds fertile ground in this transformation, in that moment when desire stops being human and becomes something monstrous. What begins as a simple longing for gold can evolve into something far stranger, an ancient, obsessive hunger that refuses to let anything escape its grasp. Top of the morning, friends, and welcome back to ETF. Last year, for St. Paddy's Day, we talked about Leprechaun. So this year, it only felt fitting that we discuss Leprechaun 2. Horror sequels often exist in a strange space between repetition and reinvention. They inherit the mythology of their predecessors, but must also find new ways to justify their own existence. In the case of Leprechaun 2, the film occupies a peculiar corner of horror cinema. Part slasher, part supernatural fairy tale, and part dark comedy that seems fully aware of its own absurdity. What emerges is not simply a continuation of the original film, but a strange, mischievous escalation of its ideas, leaning harder into humor, myth, and the theatrical malevolence of its central creature. At the center of it all is the returning performance of Warwick Davis as the titular Leprechaun, a character that feels less like a traditional horror villain and more like a folkloric trickster, weaponized by B-movie sensibilities. While the first film presented the Leprechaun as a malicious guardian of gold, the sequel expands his motivations into something almost mythic. The creature emerges every 1,000 years to claim a bride. This bizarre narrative premise immediately pushes the film further into dark fairy tale territory. Rather than simply chasing stolen treasure, the Leprechaun now operates within an ancient ritual that blends romance, possession, and violence. The result is a horror narrative that feels oddly archaic, as though it were built from the bones of a corrupted folk legend. Psychologically, Leprechaun 2 is fascinated with possession, not just of wealth, but of people. The Leprechaun's obsession with claiming a bride reflects a deeper thematic pattern. Everything must be owned. Gold must be reclaimed. People must be controlled. Even identity becomes something that can be manipulated or forced into submission. This fixation transforms the creature into more than just a killer. He becomes a grotesque embodiment of acquisitive desire. In that sense, the Leprechaun represents an exaggerated form of greed that extends beyond money. His pursuit of a human bride mirrors the same compulsive need for possession that drives his obsession with gold. The character's worldview is simple and terrifying. If something exists, it can be claimed. The film's horror arises from this warped logic, where the boundaries between objects and people begin to collapse. Yet the film never presents this darkness in a purely serious way. Instead, it leans heavily into humor and theatricality. The Leprechaun sings, taunts, rhymes, and performs elaborate acts of cruelty with gleeful enthusiasm. This tonal balancing act between horror and comedy is one of the film's most defining traits. The violence is often cartoonish, the dialogue knowingly ridiculous, and the creature's personality borders on vaudevillian. This comedic framing serves an important psychological function. By exaggerating the villain's personality into something flamboyant and performative, the film transforms fear into spectacle. The audience is not simply meant to fear the Leprechaun, they are meant to enjoy watching him. The character becomes a kind of horror jester, turning brutality into entertainment. Much of this works because of Davis's performance. His physicality and expressive delivery give the creature an almost Shakespearean mischievousness. Rather than portraying the Leprechaun as a silent monster, Davis fills the role with charisma, sarcasm, and theatrical menace. The character feels alive in a way that many slasher villains do not. He speaks constantly, jokes frequently, and revels in his own wickedness. If you're anything like me, film doesn't end when the credits roll. The best stories linger. They follow you home. They live in your head long after the screen fades to black. That's why I'm proud to partner with Audible. Audible isn't just audiobooks. It's an entire library of storytelling. Horror, noir, true crime, sci-fi, psychological thrillers, Audible original podcasts. The kinds of narratives we explore here on Embrace the Film don't stop at cinema. On Audible, you can dive into the novels that inspire your favorite film, explore exclusive original dramas, and experience immersive audio productions that feel as cinematic as anything you'd see in a theater. If you love the psychological tension of a slow burn thriller, or the creeping dread of analog horror, Audible lets you carry that atmosphere with you on late night drives, long walks, or those quiet hours when the world feels just a little too still. It's storytelling without a screen, and sometimes that makes it even more intimate, because now the images have to come from you. You can start listening today and get a free trial by using the link in the description. It's one of the best ways to support the channel while discovering your next obsession. Close your eyes, press play, and let the story unfold with Audible. From a film history perspective, Leprechaun 2 belongs to a lineage of horror sequels that gradually embrace self-awareness. Much like franchises such as Nightmare on Elm Street or Child's Play, the sequel begins to shift the focus away from pure terror and toward the personality of its villain. The monster becomes the attraction, the kills become punchlines. The narrative exists largely as a framework for watching the antagonist perform. This shift is both the film's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. On one hand, it makes the movie entertaining in a way that straightforward horror might not achieve. On the other hand, it dilutes the sense of danger. The film rarely feels truly frightening because it is too busy enjoying its own absurdity. However, this absurdity is also part of the franchise's charm. Leprechaun 2 understands that its premise is inherently ridiculous. A murderous Irish fairy tale chasing people around Los Angeles over supernatural marriage rites. And instead of resisting that ridiculousness, it embraces it fully. The film becomes a celebration of B-movie creativity, where imagination matters more than realism. There is also something quietly fascinating about the setting. Moving the story into a modern urban environment creates a surreal contrast between ancient folklore and contemporary culture. The Leprechaun feels like an artifact from another era, wandering through pawn shops, bars, and city streets that have no mythology to contain him. The clash between old superstition and modern indifference adds an unexpected layer of texture to the story. In many ways, Leprechaun 2 operates like a twisted urban fairy tale. Its logic is dreamlike, its villain operates according to strange magical rules, and its world feels just slightly disconnected from reality. The film does not attempt to build a complex mythology. Instead, it treats folklore like a toy box of strange ideas that can be reshaped for entertainment. Ultimately, Leprechaun 2 is less about horror than it is about personality. The film lives and dies on the energy of its villain, and fortunately that villain is endlessly entertaining. While it may not reach the atmospheric tension of the original film, which also had its absurdity to it, let's not get this wrong, it compensates by amplifying the mischievous spirit that defines the franchise. What remains most memorable is the strange charisma of the Leprechaun himself, a creature driven by greed, ritual, and theatrical cruelty, yet somehow impossible to completely hate. He is not simply a monster, he is a performer, and like any good performers, he knows the audience is watching. Well, friends, that's gonna be all for now. If you are interested in this film, I urge you to check it out for yourself and formulate your own thoughts and opinions about it. I hope you come share those thoughts and opinions in the comments. Let me know if there are any movies that you would like to see discussed on this channel. I always love to hear from you guys, and I do my best to try and respond to everyone. As always, I've put a link down in the description to a physical copy of this film, if one exists, that you can add to your collection. Using that link helps out the channel, and that's always appreciated. If you like this video, I urge you to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already. I know that some of you watching aren't subscribed, so help out the channel and subscribe. If you'd like to go the extra mile and support the channel even more, we do have a couple options for you to do so. You can join us on Patreon, where you can get yourself early access to future videos, Patreon exclusive content, and access to the ETF Digital Archive. We get a lot of compliments about the VHS collection that you guys see in the background of our videos. Well, we've been hard at work slowly digitizing the collection and creating a place where we can share it with all of you. Thanks to the help of the Plex platform, we can now do just that. This is our way of doing our part in helping preserve that gritty, nostalgic VHS look and feeling before it's gone forever. With Plex, you can stream our VHS collection from anywhere at any time. It's basically like having a streaming service for VHS, which I think is pretty cool. Additionally, if you're tired of adding to your growing list of monthly subscriptions, you can help support the channel on Ko-Fi, where you can drop a single tip, the cost of a cup of coffee, or less. No pressure, no tiers required. But with all the same monthly benefits that you will find on Patreon offered as well. We also have a Mercari store where you can go and get yourself a little piece of the ETF archive. While collecting VHS, Blu-rays, and DVDs over many years, we wind up with lots of duplicates, and we unfortunately can't store them all. So on our Mercari shop, we have all of those for sale. Purchasing those not only expands your collection, but makes room for us to expand ours. All the links for everything are down in the description. Until next time, stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.